I'll just go over the things that you should expect to learn. So obviously, you're going to learn about Airflow, what Airflow is, what DAG is. You're going to learn about what dynamic DAGs are, right? And then you're going to learn about Jinja, and then you're going to have like a live walkthrough of a sample code base. So this session is really packed. It's really going to be an amazing session, and it's a 2-hour session. So I just want to encourage you to pick up your notepad, your pen, your jotters, anything, because you're going to be writing a lot, right? And you're really going to learn. So even if you know anything about Airflow, it is just an opportunity to get to learn more, right? And our guest, our speaker for this session is no other than Joseph. Highly esteemed Joseph Ojo. He's a data engineer, and he's a very highly esteemed member of the data engineering community. And I'm sorry, but I have to say this, for some reason, wherever his name pops up, either on social media or the community, I just think about DBT. For some reason, I do not know. So this session is going to be anchored by Joseph Ojo. He's a data engineer at Number, where he helps his company, right? So if you visit his LinkedIn profile, which I'll be pasting in the chat, he's a data engineer at heart. He's an engineer at heart. So you're in for an amazing experience and an amazing session. I would like to hand over the mic to Joseph Ojo. Hi, Joseph. Please, are you there? Please take the floor. Thank you so much.
All right. So Blessing has done the introduction. So let me also do that again for is the word from out now. So everyone, I welcome you all to today's webinar. And as Blessing has mentioned, my name is Joseph, and I work as a data engineer at Number Financial Services. I like to call myself an engineer than a data engineer because I'm here and there. I like the whole building stuff. So today you might find me doing some software related stuff. Tomorrow DevOps. I think at the end of last year, I was asking more questions around deployment on AWS last year. So I'm here and there when it comes to building and deploying things. So for today's webinar, we'll be touching a little bit on Airflow just to cover some basics. I understand that the audience of this webinar is mixed. We're going to have some people that are very, very familiar with Airflow, some people that just know that Airflow is the OG of orchestrator. Aside from that, they don't really know what Airflow is. So to carry everybody along, we are going to need to talk about Airflow just to make sure that nobody is lost in the webinar. Then after that, we will talk about Airflow 3 features, and we're going to talk about dynamic DAG, which is the main topic of the day, and we're going to talk about the use cases. We're going to talk about the different dynamic ways that are out there, and we're going to do a little bit of intro to Jinja. So Jinja is very, very core to the dynamic DAG. So without knowing how to play around with Jinja, you might find it hard to actually build dynamic DAGs. Then after that, we are going to do a sample code walkthrough, then a Q&A, then an item 7. So please, before you leave the call, you can meet Blessing for your virtual item 7. Okay, so now to what Airflow is. Airflow in simple terms, Airflow is an orchestrator, and it coordinates or manages processes to achieve an outcome. So I like to say that it's more like a musical conductor, all those people that usually hold those tiny stuff that leads the orchestra, the people playing violins, the people like that. It tells this one to start, it tells this one to stop, like that. So, and now to better understand what Airflow does or what it is, I think it's going to be better to go down to the memory lane and learn about why Airflow came to be, what brought about Airflow. which problem were people having that brought about the birth of Airflow. So, and this would lead us to the company called Airbnb. I don't want to assume that everybody knows Airbnb, but Airbnb is the genesis, is where Airflow was created by the guy Maxwell. So, and for people that don't know Airbnb is a place where you rent long and short-term rental stay. So, see it as if there's people that don't want to stay in an hotel and someone that has a room that wants to lease it out for people to come and stay. Airbnb connects those kind of people to the people that are looking for those kind of services. So now, so the problem, Airbnb had a problem. They were a company that was growing at a massive rate, and they had a lot of data workflow that was powering different initiatives, and it was becoming a burden to manage. So it was becoming a burden to manage, and at that early stage, it was becoming a burden to manage. So they were like, okay, after some time now, even if you scale now, this thing we will not be able to manage it at all. So they listed out their problems, and they said that, okay, they want to have something that can automate their workflow, that can give visibility and observability into the status of workflow. I'm still going to go into this when I'm talking about life before Airflow. So we are going to see what Airflow gives. We are going to see how people do this before Airflow. So, and the other one is the ability to be able to create workflow with code programmatically. Now, to go to what DAG is. So DAG is a core concept of Airflow, and the meaning is directed acyclic graph. So now, this is a DAG, a sequence of operation of, let's say, a pipeline now. So we have the start task. Then after the start task, we have two operation that is going to run in parallel. We have the first operation, we have the second operation. So these two will be executed in parallel. Then after that, we're going to have some other tasks that is going to run immediately after the two tasks has been completed. Then after that, we're going to have the third and fourth operation before the workflow ends. So if any of these tasks should fail, the others will not run. So and Airflow give us visibility into what failed, what doesn't fail, and all those things like that. So yeah, that is the DAG. So this is one of the core concepts of Airflow, and anything that you're going to be doing is going to be centered around the DAG. Okay. So so the next part, which is the life before Airflow. So before Airflow came to be, there's something called cron or unit system. So cron is like a scheduler that runs a command at a particular time. So in Airbnb, they will most likely have had hundreds of different cron jobs running across servers. Oh. Can you hear me? Oh.
Yes, we can hear you.
All right. So they would have had hundreds or thousands of cron jobs that was running across servers with no central control. So that means that, and also there is this issue of monitoring it now. So knowing what failed, what did not fail, and all those things. So to do that with cron, that means that each of the workflow would need to have a Latin embedded in it, and that is very, very hard to manage with cron. And another thing would be the retry logic. So Airflow out of the box gives you the ability to retry a few tasks or to rerun it. So let's go back to this DAG now. Sorry, one second. So let's go back to this DAG now. So let's say for some reason now, there's some other task failed now. So with a cron job now, you would not be able to start from where you stopped. Is either you rerun the old job. I mean, that is even if you know that the job failed. You will need to rerun the old command again. But with Airflow now, you can start the run from where it failed. So if you want to rerun this now, you don't need to run operation 1 and operation 2 again. You can just start from some other tags and run it to the end. So that is basically the life before Airflow. So, and another thing that we're going to talk about before we move away from Airflow is the basics, is the components of Airflow. So Airflow has some set of components that work together in harmony for Airflow to be what it is. And we have some that are compulsory and we have some that are optional. So for the compulsory one is the web server. So you know that one of the problems that I said that these people were facing is the monitoring and observability. So, and this web server is what gives you the interface that allows you to inspect, trigger, and debug workflows. So this is where you would go to see the job that you have, are they running, which tags field, the number of tags that makes up a tag. So this is what gives you that observability. Then the next one is the folder of tags. So these are your workflows. So this is where your workflows, this is where your workflows are stored, are defined, to use that one. And the third one, which is the metadata database. So for Airflow to run, you would need to connect it to a backend database. So in dev environments, it's usually use SQLite 3, which is a file-based database system. And if you want to go to production, Airflow advises that you use something other than SQLite 3. And when we go to the UI, you are going to see the warning that says that you should not use this in production. So the metadata database, this is where Airflow stores the state of the workflow and task. It keeps track everything that is available in the UI. This is where Airflow stores them. Yeah, and by default, it uses the SQLite this thing, and you can also use it with MySQL or Postgres, depending on what you have running. So for the optional ones, we have the worker. So see worker as, like the name worker, what Airflow uses to run your tasks. And we have the trigger, and this is where the default tasks go to, and the optional folders of plugins. So for these plugins now, Airflow itself, out of the box, cannot cater for everybody's use case. So that means that there's going to be a need to have something extra. So to bring that home, we have a custom operator at my place for Zoho CRM. So this operator now, it takes data from Zoho and moves it to BigQuery. And we also have another operator that go the other way. So out of the box, I doubt that Airflow has an operator for Zoho. So this is Airflow giving us the what's the word now? The avenue to be able to extend its capabilities. And now to move to the next one, Airflow 3, which is the latest thing in town. So if I were to be on the other side of the webinar, I'm going to be curious about something. I'm going to be curious that why are we calling it Airflow 3? What does the 3 mean? So in software, so there's this what would I call it? There's a versioning. There are different versioning systems, but the popular one is the semantic versioning. What's it called? So, and the semantic versioning follows a naming rule, or let me call it a version rule. It follows three digits. So you see the first digit. Let's say 1. You see something like, for people that works with Python library very well, you see something like 0.1.12. So you see the first digit, you see the second digit, and you see the third digit. So in semantic version, when the first digit changes, that means that, let's say it goes from 0.9 to 1.0. So that means that is a major release. Let's say it goes from 1.9 to 2, that's the major release. So for the first digit to change, so this is going to be 3.0. So that means that this is a major release, and this is coming with a major change that will most likely not be backward compatible. So for the next digit, which is the middle one, so this is for normal feature, adding feature to the existing one, minor changes, while the third one is like bug fixes or something like that, or security patches. So to take this semantic versioning home, or something that we can relate to, I think a similar example that is close would be for, I want to assume that everybody's familiar with Apple products. So let's take Apple iPhones for an example now. You know, you would have, I mean, Apple have been doing like iPhone 1, 2, 3, like that. And I think from, is it 7 or 8, they started doing something like, let me use 11. They will do iPhone 11, they will do iPhone 11 Pro, they will do iPhone 11 Pro Max before they do 12. So, and this is similar. iPhone 11 and iPhone 11 Pro, they are going to be similar, though the size might not, the height or the dimension might not be the same, but they're on the same wavelength. So maybe just difference in maybe storage or space or RAM or something like that. So this is very, very similar to versioning in tech. So FO3 is a major upgrade from, I think the last version is 2.10. So what is coming in FLO 3? It is coming with a new look, and that is just facelift. And the most interesting feature that I myself find interesting is the multi-language support. So until now, you can only write FLO DAGs in Python. But with FLO 3, you will be able to write DAGs in other languages like Go and the likes like that. So that means that people will be able to adopt FLO more. So that is for someone like me that wants to change all their code base to maybe Go or something. I would be able to do that. Airflow would not be hindering me. So yeah, Airflow 3 will be supporting different languages aside Python. And the other key features is this DAG versioning. So for people that write DAGs, you will know that when you change a DAG, you will lose your history. You will lose your history and all those things like that. So, but now, though there has been some kind of a workaround around, let's say 2.8 or 2.10, like a workaround where people used to version their DAX. But now, out of the box, Airflow will be supporting versioning. And what this means is that you'll be able to see how your DAG has changed over time, and you'll be able to trigger a particular version of a DAG. Yeah. So those are the cool features that are coming in Airflow 3, and I think that it should be released sometime this Q2. I'm not really sure. I think there are some people that are beta testing or something like that. Now, to the next slide, we are getting into the dynamic DAG area, and I want to paint a scenario. So there's this guy, his name is Bijan. So if you should, I wanted to use a name, but I don't want my Oga to sue me. So what was this thing? I flipped it upside down. So if we should rearrange the name from the backward to the front, it's going to spell out my boss's name. So Bijan is what we call an Agba plumber. That means is a crazy engineer. Is very, very like highly rated. So now he's joining a company called Fufu Republic, and he's joining that company to lay down their pipelines as the first data hire. So they call them that, oh, hey, we started this company and we need insights into our daily operations. So, and from the things that we've seen on LinkedIn, they read that a data engineer should be your first hire. Even not, if you should hire a data analyst first, the data analyst would need to be doing some data engineering tasks. So they reach out to Bijan because of his highly rated, and he has joined them to help them solve their problem. So now, in the first weeks of Bijan's work with Fufu Republic, so they asked him that, okay, we have Postgres and we have a Postgres database, and we have Zoho that we're using for our CRM, and we need you to like do something with this. And as a modern data stack advocate, Bijan recommended that, okay, let's use Airflow and let's use DBT and BigQuery, and we are good to go. So Bijan spin up Airflow. He created a DAG for table one. Let's call it orders. So he created a DAG, wrote the code, wrote the pipeline, it ran fine, and moved the data. So, and the second week, they came again that, oh, we need you to move around that table. So Vija now duplicated the file and just change one or two configs, since they are basically the same thing. You just need to change the table name and just change one or two things in the DAG, and you are good to go. Again, like that. One thing that you realize here is that now Bijan is violating one of a core principle of software engineering. And that principle is called DRY, do not repeat yourself. So because of they are coming to Bijan to move table one table at a time, is duplicating code. So I mean the DAGs are basically the same thing, just different table names. So Bijan created one DAG, wrote all the code. Now he's having to create a new file over and over again, and he's doing a copy and paste. And when you are doing a copy and paste in programming, you should find a way to automate that. So that violates this principle called do not repeat yourself. You should try as much as possible not to repeat code over and over again, because now maintenance becomes a problem. And when you are doing copy and paste, you are prone to error. And another issue from copy and paste is that there might not be consistency. So let's say after some time, Bijan employed me to come and join in and build pipelines now, and I was given the task to do it again. Now I might deviate from the normal way that they write a DAG, or I might just change one or two things about it. But if there's like something that I can reuse, so let's say in the normal Python one now, you would write a Python function that you can call, or maybe just write a class or something like that you can reuse over and over again. So now the ability to create a DAG, or let me call it DAG, the ability to create a DAG for you to reuse over and over again. So that means that you're going to write a DAG once, and if you want to use the DAG to move, let's say, 100 tables, you don't need to copy and paste the DAG over and over again. Though the end goal will still create 100 DAGs, but now you are not doing the copy and pasting again. You are just writing the config for the new file. So what I'm saying now, we're going to see it in a moment. So for do not repeat yourself principle, these are some of the reasons. These are some of the advantages: the code reusability, the avoidance of copy and paste error. Now there's consistency, and maintenance and updates is going to be easy. So let's say now that we've duplicated the code, let's say 20 times now. Let's say we have 20 Postgres DAGs, and we have some other DAGs totaling 100, and we need to update everything in all the Postgres DAGs. And that means that we're going to be updating, let's say, 20 files. Trying to find those files might not even be easy. But let's say we add just one file. Making updates to that file would be very, very easy. So this is where the principle come into play. Now, before we can do this, we need to use something that allows us to have like a template. And this is where Jinja comes in. Now, Jinja is a templating engine in Python where you can have some things written down, and you can have placeholders written there. So when you now render the template, it substitutes the value that you are passing to it. So see it as your function where you define the parameter that, okay, this function is going to accept a name, is going to accept an age, is going to accept a gender, and it's going to do something with it and give you maybe a letter or something. So this is what Jinja does for us, and we're going to see it in action in a little bit. So Jinja is very, very popular in the web framework side of things, but it's also, if you are using DBT, you will be very, very familiar with Jinja. So that is also being used extensively at that end. So now to the demo. Yeah. Okay, let me go to this. Let me open my VS Code. All right. So I gave an example now. So let's say this is the, can you all see my VS Code?
Yes, we can.
All right. So
yes, but you can make it bigger. I mean, you can zoom in.
Is it okay now?
Yes, much better from my end. Thank you.
Okay. Sorry. Before I move to the DAG, we need to do something in Jinja. Sorry, I forgot about. So we need to talk a little bit about Jinja and just look at some example of what I said. I mentioned that we can have things in placeholders in Jinja. So, and this is an example. We're going to see an example of a normal string. We're going to see an example of having a template as a file, and also do some how to do conditionals in Jinja and why that is important. I'm going to see that shortly. So to use Jinja in outside Airflow, you will need to import it, like the name Jinja, and these are some of the methods that we are going to be using. So in this case now, this looks like the normal Python F string where you can, this formats something, where you can have a variable in a string and you can format it and assign a variable to that, assign a value to that variable. So anywhere you see the double curly brackets, that will most likely be Jinja, either DBT or Python. Anywhere you see the double curly bracket, most likely it's going to be Jinja. So in this case now, we are having a simple greeting template. So we have an hello and we have a name. So this is a Jinja string, and whenever we want to use this now, we're just going to render the Jinja and just pass in the values. And if I should run this now, you're going to see hello Joseph. If I should change this now, we're going to see the output. So that means now I've written the greeting once. I don't need to like duplicate the greeting and say hello Joseph, hello. I've forgotten yeah, hello Joseph. So this is an example of the string, using string with Jinja. And the next one is going to be about conditionals in Jinja. So let's say we want to show a different thing based on a condition. So in this example now, we are having an admin condition. So if this person is an admin, show this greeting. If the person is not an admin, show this greeting. So if I should run this now, we're going to see welcome admin. And if I should set this to false, you're going to see welcome user. So yeah, and where are we going to use this in building a dynamic DAG? So let's say an example would be, let's say you want to have, let's say a DBT job. Should a DAG have a DBT job? That's a true or false. So you can say that, okay, if this DAG has a DBT job, you need to import the operator. So that means that you don't have an operator that you're not using in a DAG. So that's an example of using a conditional statement in a dynamic DAG. So you would have these conditions to check. If this is true, we need to import this. If this is true, we need to have an operator for this. So we are going to use that in a template, and I'm going to show us that in a bit. I just need to show us this pieces. Yeah. So for the next one is a loop. This is something that we might not really be using in Airflow, building dynamic DAGs, but this knowledge is going to be very, very important. You might find a use case where you will need to use a loop inside a DAG. And in the example that I have, I used a loop there because I need to iterate through the columns to list them in the match statement. So yeah, it follows, the syntax is very, very similar to the normal for loop. I mean, if I should remove these curly brackets and the percentage sign, it looks like normal Python loop. So we are saying for item in items now, show the items. If I should run this now, you can see it is basically taking this milk, render it, then the eggs, the bread, and the butter. So this is an example of a Jinja string follow. And so the final one would be having this template as a file, then reading it in and passing values to it. So now let me open this template. We have a welcome template. So we have I user welcome to the platform. So this is a template that I've written. So I want to read this file in and pass the value to it. So, and this is what I'm doing. So I'm getting the templates, I'm rendering the templates, passing the values, and also printing the render, the render templates. Now I can write this value back to a file if there is a need. So that is basically the process of creating a dynamic DAG. You have a template, you have some values, you substitute the values, and you write it back to a Python file, which is going to be your DAG. So that is the intro to Jinja. Now we are going to be going to the DAG part. Now, this is the normal DAG that anybody that's written a DAG will be familiar with. So your basic imports, your basic default args, and your constructor where you are passing the DAG ID and the schedule, the start and catch up and things like that. And for this DAG now, we have about five operators. We have the Postgres operators to GCS. So what this operator would do is that this operator would take data from the source, which is the Postgres table. Now this is going to take the other table and is going to take it to the GCS. So this is the extract. Then after that, now we have another operator that takes that output to a temporary table. Though it's a table, but it's going to be temporary in this case now. So the reason why we are not writing the file straight to the main table is because of duplicates, because we are doing a CDC, we are basically just selecting things where that has changed. So if we are doing an instance like that, we are going to be having duplicates on our hand. So first, we need to write those change data to that table, and this is what this operator is doing. So it's taking data from the GCS, it's taking it to the BigQuery. So we have temp orders. Now, to the next operator now, the next operator now is now merging the temporary table to the main table based on the order ID. Then after that, we are having a cleanup operator. So there's a feature of DBT that it's, I mean, when I started using DBT, I was not familiar with it. It was until a situation whereby normally you would have a cleanup operator in your job, but sometimes a job will create something and it's going to fail before it gets to that part. And the last operator, the cleanup will not get to run. And what that means is that you are going to be having orphaned resources. Maybe you're going to be having orphaned resources in your bucket, or you're going to be having orphaned data sets, or you're going to be having orphaned table that the job did not get to clean up. So now, what I'm now using here is what we call the trigger rule. So what does this mean? It's going to run regardless. It's going to run regardless if the job, if all the tasks pass or not. It's going to run regardless. So that means that if, let's say, it failed in this inside job operators now, in this manner, if this match should fail now, this guy will still run. But in the normal airflow setting, without this trigger rule, if this should fail, this other task will not run. So that means that we're going to have a temp orders often. So that is what this trigger rule is doing. So this is just going to clean everything up, irrespective of the state of all the tasks. But there is something that we would need to know about this trigger rule. Because of how Airflow, this is how Airflow used to know if a workflow was successful. It takes the status of the last task. So let's say we have, if we have 4 tasks and 3 failed, I mean, 2 passed, 1 failed, and the last one run that does a cleanup. So because of the last one was successful, it's going to show the job as successful, whereas 1 failed. So to fix that, you would need to have something. Sorry, 1 second. Let's pass. So to fix that, you would need to have some extra things to make sure that if any should fail, if any tag should fail, you should mark the job as failed. But I did not do that because that is out of scope of this. So now, and I have an extra operator that doesn't really do anything. So the reason why I'm having this operator here is just to show how the conditional parts work. So we are going to be having this bash operator appear in some DAGs, and we're going to have it not appear in some DAGs. So this bash operator now is just being as a placeholder for DBT job. So now that is the walkthrough of a DAG. We've not really done the dynamic part. So for dynamic DAGs, there are two approaches that I'm aware of that we can use. We have the single file and we have the multi-file. We have the single file and we have the multiple file approach. And I'm going to be showing us the two parts. Now, so this is an example of a single file dynamic DAG. Now I have my imports, I have my different tags. I have a task to generate a report, I have a task to write a report, and I have another one to print the report. And you can see I am iterating through the cities. So each of the city would have its own DAG, and inside the loop, I am creating a DAG constructor, and I am appending it. So this globals now is giving us the ability to create DAGs from this. Now, the reason why, now let me show you this on the UI. So this is the DAG that is generated from the single file. We have 3 DAGs that is generated from 1 file. So now if I should go back to this place and let's say, let me add another city here. So let me add Berlin. Hopefully the scheduler will pick it up fast. So you can see it has added the Berlin there. And I did not have to create a new DAG for that. But there's a problem with the single file approach. So every time the scheduler passes the DAG, it has to populate all these DAGs. So that means that if the DAG, if the single file should grow to a large number, it's going to be slowing. It's going to be slowing the what's it called? So that is why the single file method is not always advisable. And with time, it's going to be very, very complicated to debug or manage like that because you're having different things in a single file. So let's say one task fail now, troubleshooting is going to be hard in a single file dynamic DAG. So what this is just to show you that this is also possible in this part. Now, this is for the single file dynamic DAG. For the multiple file dynamic DAG, now this is where we are going to use Jinja. Now, let me go to this file. There are 3 different wheels. Let me call it wheels. So first, we have the template. Now, this is similar to the DAG that I just walked us through. We have a template that looks like a DAG, and we are seeing some Jinja code or some Jinja syntax in there. So in this one, you can see if this has a DBT job, we need to import the bash operator. Then after that, we are having some other placeholders. We are having placeholder for the table, for the tags. We're having a placeholder for the DAG ID. We're having a placeholder for the schedule. So basically, in the template, you can have a placeholder for things that you would most likely change. So we have a placeholder for that. We have a placeholder for the table name. And the reason why we are having a placeholder for the table name because we are going to be using this for different tables. So that means we need to be able to pass it as arguments. And yeah, so this is also some of the things that are able to you out of the box in Airflow. We have the DS, we have the execution date and the next execution date. So these are parameters that are available to you out of the box. Airflow will substitute it. So after that, we have some parameters again for the bucket name, file name, and things like that. So I'm just going to skip some things and move to the merge operator, because this is where I used the for loop Jinja syntax. So without the for loop Jinja syntax, creating this merge statement is going to be complicated. So that means that I would need to be writing the merge statement for each of the table that I want to move. But because of the for loop Jinja syntax now, I am able to like basically construct the merge statement. I can say that when it is not matched, this is the columns you need to update. When you don't match, do an insert. I don't need to. It makes it dynamic. It makes the match statement dynamic. At the end of the day, if I should create the tag, it's going to populate all these things. And this is similar to your for loop. Like I said, the only thing that that might be new is this if if the loop is not the last one. So what the loop last is doing in this case, that you want to know when you've gotten to the end. So now, when you've gotten to the end, you don't need to add a comma to it. If you should add a comma to it, it's going to it might cause syntax error. So if it's not last, you would add the column, then add a comma. So for columns that you want to update, you set the column equal to this, add a comma, then do like that until you get to the last. And when you get to the last, you won't add a comma to it. And the same thing for these inserts and values. So this is where we are using the Jinja syntax. You don't really need to like have this thing saved in your memory like that, but you just know that, okay, this is how it works. And whenever you need it, you can maybe just look up the syntax, how it is used, and just put it there. I doubt I can write these things off the top of my head, but I know what I want to write. I'll just run the syntax and just use it. So aside that now, another place where we are going to be using a conditional statement is the DBT job back. Some jobs would have DBT, some jobs will not have DBT. So that means that if the job does not have DBT, we don't need to have the operator. And that is what the conditional statement is doing here. So if the job has DBT, this would appear. If it doesn't, it will not appear. And also, if you look at it here now, we're also having a conditional statement there. So this is where we are setting the dependency between the tags. So we need to run the Postgres to GCS first. Then after that, we run the GCS to BQ. Then after that, we do the BQ match. So now, after doing the BQ match, now, if it has a DBT job, you need to run the DBT job. If it doesn't, just do the cleanup. So this is the template. I said that it has 3 views. First, you need to write the template. So the second one are the config files. So in this situation, we're going to be using YAML. You can use JSON. You can use any method that you want. If you are not comfortable with YAML, you can have a JSON. You just make the third one to be able to, I'll get to that. So in this YAML part now, this is where we are passing the arguments that is needed to create a DAG or things that change. So the first one, we are setting the value of the DAG ID, we are setting a table name, what the temp table should be called, the GCP project, the data set, the bucket. We are basically just giving it all the required arguments it needs to substitute in the DAG. And in this phase now, we are telling you that okay, this as a DBT job, and these are the columns that I want to update. So now, if I want to write I want to move like 10 different Postgres table, I don't need to write these 10 times. I just need to have like 10 different, I just need to have like 10 YAML files. So now this sort of lowers the entry point of collaboration. So anyone in the team, even if the person is a junior engineer, can basically just create a DAG. The person doesn't really need to know, doesn't really need to know Airflow that to some extent to be able to create the DAGs, because now you just need to pass just values for it, and that is it. So this is the second wheel in creating dynamic DAGs, where you are going to pass the values. Now, the third one is the part that generates the DAG, that generates the file, and it is a Python file. So this is very, very similar to the file Jinja example where the Python code is reading a Jinja template and it is passing a value to it. So this multifile.py now is taking the Jinja template, is reading in the YAML file, and it is taking the arguments in the YAML file and putting it as a substitute in the template. And after that, it writes it as a Python file. So to just take us through this code now, this is getting the base directory, it is getting the directory for the config files, it is getting the directory for the template. So in the normal setting, you would most likely have a template for everything you do. So on our end, I think we would most likely have more than 10 plus Airflow templates. What am I saying? It's a lot of templates. Basically, I have templates for almost everything. I don't think we've ever written a new DAG for like 6 to 8 months. We are just creating YAML files. So now, when you have multiple templates now, it makes the generation a little bit hard. So that means that you will need to have folders for your YAML to sort of separate them. So you will need to have different folders for different workflows. So if you are going from Postgres to BigQuery, you need to have a folder for that would have, okay, if you want to move files from Postgres to BigQuery, this is where you need to put the YAML file. If you want to go the other way, you want to go from BigQuery to Postgres, this is where you need to put the YAML file. And you most likely be modifying the multifile.py to accommodate that. So this guy here is taking the template and it is reading the YAML file and basically substituting it. So this is where we are doing the render. So if you look at this file, if you should look at this place now, this section, and if I should go back to this Jinja, you can see it's very, very similar. So we are getting the templates, record on template, and we are rendering the values. So basically, this is what is happening here. So we are reading the config that was read from this file. So that, sorry, 1 second, moved. So that is what this file is doing. So this file now will create as many DAGs as we have YAML file. So let me delete this guy. Let me just move it to trash. Let me just move it outside. So if I go back to my Airflow, let me refresh and see if it's going to take time to. For some reason, the scheduler takes time to pick up that something that's changing in the DAG file. But anyway, let me go back to this space. So I'm going to run the command. I'm going to run this file, and this file will create the DAG in the respective folder. So to run this, I'm going to do Python 3 multifile.py and save. Bam. I have the DAG file here with everything refilled and with a DBT job. So now let's say someone wants to, maybe they create another order table. So let me duplicate this. Copy, paste. So let me say order 2. Maybe they create another order table. Or let's say, let me call it order V2 now. And I'll say order V2. I'll change the DAG ID, change the table name, change the temp table. All this will remain the same. All this can remain the same. So if I should save this now and I should run the file again, it's going to generate the DAG for the second file. You see now, I did not have to like copy the code and just go and paste it and start changing the code. I just needed to create a YAML file and just change some of the configs, and bam, the DAG is created. So if you are using dynamic DAGs, this process of creating DAGs now would be incorporated in the CI/CD pipeline. So if you are using a, let's say, if you are using a managed airflow, I think for most of the managed airflows, your DAGs will most likely be sitting in a bucket. So in that way, now you will need to run this Python file to generate the DAGs, and those DAGs will be moved to maybe S3 or GCP buckets, and it's going to appear in your UI. So and that way you've created a DAG dynamically. So it's still the end goal is still sort of the same, but this one now there's a little bit of consistency, and there's a little the error in this approach is very, very minimal, very, very less. So, and if someone that doesn't even know Airflow can basically create that without not having the knowledge of it. So yeah, that is that about the dynamic part of the Airflow. And I'm not going to run this, but I've executed this, what's it called, before the webinar started. And you can see I have the, what's it called here. So if I should run this, I have the file. Let me just trigger this. Let me trigger this pipeline. So I might have deleted it. Hopefully this would work without error. So while this is running, this approach that it failed. This approach that I did now is like maybe a custom creating things, like creating a custom way of creating that. But there are tools out there that helps us create this. So we have what we call Gusto and DAG Factory. So these are tools that people have written to help us create dynamic DAGs, and it is worth checking out. So yeah, that is going to bring me to the end of the talk, and we are going to move into the Q&A. And after that, we'll call it a day.
All right. Thank you so much, Joe, for that really, really amazing session. I am certain, speaking on behalf of everybody, I know that we actually learned a lot. Thank you so much again for that really interesting session.